When I first started to learn of Black settlements in Victoria and Salt Spring, I wondered why I did not see evidence of this in Victoria's population, nor much history in the museums of BC. I've seen 4 gravestones inserted into the Ross Bay Cemetery by the Black History Society of BC, and these are the most tangible evidence of Black settlers. I hope my stories today give a little idea of why they came, what their lives and work were like, and why many did not stay here permanently. In 1858, Sir James Douglas, the first governor of the colony of Vancouver Island, officially invited Blacks from San Francisco to Vancouver Island, promising them rights to vote, own land, and the right to testify in court against white people. Douglas was himself of mixed ancestry, Scottish, and his mother was half Black, but he was schooled in Scotland. Some 500 to 800 Blacks from San Francisco immigrated to BC. Governor Douglas's rationale was that Vancouver needed loyal settlers to populate BC and deepen the British claim against possible annexation by the United States from the first push of the gold rush. Salt Spring was the first colonies of Vancouver Island in British Columbia to allow settlers to acquire land through preemption, meaning settlers could occupy and improve the land before purchase. The purchase price was $1 per acre. I'll talk about a family of 3 men and another individual who preempted land. They arrived in Victoria Harbour in 1958 or 9. 3 men in the Jones family came to BC with gold fever. John Craven Jones graduated from Oberlin College in Ohio in 1856 with 6 years post-secondary education, an arts degree, and had taught for 2 years in a one-room school for Black students in Xenia, Ohio. Oberlin College was founded in 1883, began admitting Blacks in 1835, and its first group of women in 1837. It was very progressive for its time. John moved to Saltspring Island in 1859 with his 2 brothers, William and Ellis, who also went to Oberlin. He preempted 100 acres of land for his home and began teaching right away. I'm not sure if they were in San Francisco when James Douglas made the call to come to Vancouver Island. His brothers, however, settled in Barkersville, BC's eastern interior, to pan for gold. After the American Civil War of 1861 to 65, William returned to Oberlin College to complete his dental studies and then returned to Barkerville. He was the first dentist in BC in 1886 to be granted a license under the British Columbia Dental Act. In the meantime, Elias continued to mine near Barkerville and returned to the States in 1982 and married. In this photo of the schoolhouse on Salt Spring Island, in 1858, there were 2 schools in rough buildings, hardly more than sheds, one in Vesuvius and one in Fernwood. The schools were not segregated. Black and white and Indigenous children attended schools together. In 1861, a proper log schoolhouse was built in Vesuvius. Jones taught at both schools for a few times a day, walking back and forth between the 2, a distance of about 5 miles. These journeys were dangerous as the terrain was wild and cougars prowled the woods. Jones taught the expected lessons in reading, writing, and math, but also may have taught geometry, Latin, Greek, and geography. He taught without pay for a number of years. In one account I read, families were happy and eager to ensure he had whatever he needed to stay, providing him with clothing, produce from their gardens, eggs, meat, and poultry. And other times, he had to write to parents asking for food. Mr. Jones taught without pay even after the creation of the Salt Spring Island School District, which was formed to advocate to the government to pay school teachers. In 1869, the provincial school board finally started paying teachers, and he was paid a salary of about $40 per month. From an 1870 school report, I read, the schoolmaster offered his charges instruction in Latin and philosophy and human rights education that was the envy of the wealthiest citizens in nearby Victoria and the mainland. By 1872, John Craven Jones had 25 students, 7 in the north and 18 in central area. He was one of 16 school teachers in the entire province. But Jones was dismissed by the provincial board in 1875 because the local school district objected to the provincial board only granting him third-class qualification at the lowest rate of pay. Parents were furious at his dismissal and refused to send their children to school. Mr. Carver was the most educated person on Salt Spring and one of the most educated people in BC at that time. Let's have a photo of John and his wife, please, Pedro. So, oops, sorry. I was supposed to ask for that other photo there, as you see, of the recreation of the sign that his brother, the dentist, would have had. Now go on to John Craven Jones and his wife. So he retired to Saltspring Island Farm. In 1882, John returned to Oberlin, Ohio, met and married Amira Scott. They sold the Saltspring Island property and settled in North Carolina. Jones taught there for nearly 20 years at a black school before retiring once again as a farmer. On Salt Spring, his life has been recorded and remembered in the Different newspaper and its archives, in murals, and a song written about him in a play performed about his life. Many other of the people writing about him said, he was born into a resistance family. His life is the story of the struggle for ideas of democracy, liberty, freedom, and civil rights. I also mined most of my information from the BC Black History Society website. Let's have a photo of John and his wife. Oh, there we'll see the two together. And let's have a photo back to the schoolhouse, as I'm going to give the mic over to Dick and Attila, and they have a very special song that was actually written about John Craven Jones by a Salt Spring Island artist and musician.
So Leigh had found the lyrics for this song about John Craven Jones, and it was written by Phil Vernon, who is a longtime Salt Spring Island resident, and he's an artist and singer-songwriter. And I discovered that Getting Higher Choir actually did a song where Phil Vernon had written new lyrics to the Northwest Passage. So I asked Dennis, do you have an email address for this fellow? Because I couldn't find him anywhere. I connected with Phil. He said, by all means, here's a recording of the song so I could learn how it goes. He's happy to have us reinterpret it a little bit. And I thought that this song, and he said, yeah, if you can get it away from the folk song style that I did, he did a recording. So I thought, you know, ragtime music came out of black composers like Scott Joplin, and the kings of ragtime music were black composers. So with Attila's help, we're going to deliver the song John Craven Jones in a ragtime style, and there may be a hint of the maple leaf rag in there, which I learned is appropriate. Even in 1867, the maple leaf was known as a Canadian symbol, even though it hadn't ever been on a flag yet. So here we go, John Craven Jones. The year was 1859 when blacks came to these shores, leaving California and its brutal racist laws. They came for land and liberty to build a life that was their own. With them was a man of books, the name of John Craven Jones. Now Jones was fresh from college with a school teacher's degree. To him, an education was the key to being free. But the children of the settlement, they had no school at all. So we built a big log cabin and Jones took up the call. You can build your house of timber, you can build your house of stones, but the best foundation is a good education, said our teacher, Mr. Jones. He taught 3 days at Central, 3 days at Fernwood too. For years he had no salary for the teaching that he'd do. There were kids of every color, well-fed or skin and bones, teacher, Mr. Jones. Oh, you can build your house of timber, you can build your house of stones, but the best foundation is a good education, said our teacher, Mr. Jones. There's a spirit dwells inside us, there's a light that shines within. No matter what our station or the color of our skin, sometimes that spirit rises up to shine for everyone. And the light within John Craven Jones, it shone just like the sun. Oh, you can build your house of timber, you can build your house of stones, but the best foundation is a good education, said our teacher, Mr. Jones. Oh, you can travel all around this world, you can spend your life at home, but the best foundation is a good education, said our teacher, Mr. Jones. Saltspring Island's first school teacher, John Craven Jones.
Thank you very much, Dick. That was just awesome. The Maple Leaf Rag is very, very personal to myself as well. As I grew up and my mother had more time after her children had moved away from the house, she went from classical music, and one of the pieces she played was the Maple Leaf Rag. So thanks for that choice, and thank you so much for doing the extra work to set up this music for us and take the time to research it and find something that we could actually listen to. Now, when I have to turn my mic back on, I have to go into the Zoom, and then I have to go out of Zoom to make my talk appear before me. So it just to let you know, that's sometimes why it takes me a few minutes to get back online when transitioning from another part of our service. So John Craven Jones died at Greensboro, South Carolina on December 17th, 1911 at the age of 77. Could we now move to the photo of Mifflin Wistar Gibbs, please, Pedro? From the Black History website, there's the title, "He Did Many Great Things, Mifflin Wistar Gibbs." This figure in BC history is a good supplement of the perspective on Blacks in Victoria and Vancouver Island to John Craven Jones. As Mr. Gibbs wrote an autobiography, excuse me, give me a moment for my mouth to start working again, and he was quoted in Victoria's newspapers of his day. I found no quotes about Jones, by Jones. In his autobiography, published in 1902, Mifflin Gibbs describes his arrival in Victoria in 1858. We received a warm welcome from the governor. We had no complaint as to business patronage in the state of California, but there was ever present the disheartening consciousness that while our existence was tolerated, we were powerless to appeal to law for protection of life or property. British Columbia offered and gave us protection to both and gave us equality of political privileges. I cannot describe with what joy we hailed the opportunity to enjoy that liberty under the British lion, but was denied us beneath the pinions of the American eagle. Today, perhaps we would call Gibbs a businessman, if not an entrepreneur. Shortly after his arrival, he purchased a one-story building near today's corner of Government and Yates. The BC Black History Society website reads, Gibbs outlined the situation with admirable clarity in a letter published by the San Francisco Daily Evening Bulletin on June 28, 23rd, 1858, he was writing to his friend Peter Lister, and he says, "You will now see that I've arrived at my point of destination. I came, however, rather late to make the most advantaged investments. The country is certainly a beautiful one, and I'm sorry to be so far behind. If either of us had arrived here 2 months ago, worth 1,000, well, we would have been worth 10,000 today." Gibbs returned to Ohio briefly in 1858 and married Maria Alexander Gibbs. Gibbs became the de facto leader in Vancouver Island Black community. He was active in business, owning Lester and Gibbs that rivaled the Hudson's Bay Company. He owned property, and his 5 children were said to have been born here. In 1868, he became the first Black person elected to public office as a Victoria City Councillor representing the James Bay District. In 1868, he was a delegate representing Saltspring Island at the convention at Yale, BC, to draw up terms for BC's entry into Confederation. He favored Confederation. So when John Craven Jones first came to Saltspring Island, BC was not a province of Canada. It was still a British colony. In the fall of 1868, Gibbs was re-elected to City Council. He was also re-elected in 1869, but took a leave of absence to take charge of a coal mining project in Haida Gwaii, of which he was director. And he was responsible for constructing the first tramway in British Columbia to deliver coal to Tidewater. But at this time, his Maria and their children returned to the United States. She led a comfortable life in Victoria with servants, but she'd be excluded from Victoria society. In his autobiography, Gibbs writes, "I have a model wife in all that the term implies, and she has a husband migratory and uncertain." Gibbs liquidated his assets and returned to the United States for his family. At this time, the colony was struggling politically, administratively, and financially with the prospect of Confederation. Gibbs described the British colonial government as unfit for intelligent community in the 19th century. As he returned to the United States, he continued again to pursue a career in law. So that's the first I heard about him having a career in law. He was a businessman and a lawyer. He was the first elected Black judge in the United States. In 1897, he was appointed to by President Kinley as the U.S. consul to Madagascar. In 1907, he paid a return to visit to Victoria, and he was very delighted with the city and was deemed a person of importance in Victoria history. In 1902, he wrote and self-published an autobiography, Shadow and Light. Upon his death, the Arkansas Gazette published a full account of his life. The last paragraph states, "His standing for years as a leader among his people and the representative in political, financial, and social affairs brought him confidence to both races." To end my talk, I'll give a couple of the acknowledgements of Gibbs by Canadian governments. On August 4th, 2009, the Government of Canada recognized Gibbs as a person of national historic significance, and there is a plaque in Irving Park, Victoria. And the Mifflin Wistar Gibbs Community Room in the James Bay branch was dedicated to his name in May 2018.